Good evening. It's Erin. I'm here in Michigan and I am working on my final strategic plan. And it's a little crazy to me to be working on the final strategic plan because not only it's my final for this class, but it is my final assignment in my journey at JHU. And so it's a little bit bittersweet. I've been kind of putting it off all evening because I don't know if I want to be done with my master's. But anyways, at any rate, all good things must come to an end. And I'll be working on the Hackley and Hume Historic Site as its own entity and its strategic plan and what it needs for the future as if I were the director of the museum. And so it's the first time I'll be really looking at the Hackley and Hume Historic Site and kind of stripping away the rest of the museum, the umbrella of the Lakeshore Museum Center and the main building, and what it means to have a living history park, and all of those things. And that's a little different for me, and I would say that's the one thing that this class did, is really open up my eyes to public history as a niche, as Hackley and Hume, and how special that really is, and what I can do to further its growth in the future. And so by looking at it, by kind of stripping away the rest of the museum, what does it really need? And then I also looked at the strategic plan that's actually current, and I didn't look at that until this evening on purpose because I wanted to write all my content and then kind of go back to that strategic plan and see how the Hackley and Hume houses fit into that, and then if I would actually want to be the leader of the museum. And so that's kind of a loaded question, and I'll save that till the end. So getting right into it, I chose to change up the mission statement from what I used throughout this whole course to really reflect, I think, the Hackley and Hume Historic Site and its unique selling points that were done in the evaluations prior to this assignment in the Heritage Evaluation assignments. And I think those were really helpful in creating what the mission statement should be. And so I said that the mission statement of the Hackley and Hume site is to accurately educate visitors with the history and culture of the development of Muskegon and the lives of the families of the Hackleys and the Humes through interpretive programs and exhibits. And so I wanted to use some of those same keywords that we have, like interpretation, exhibits, programming, education. I think those are really still important to what the Hackley and Hume Historic Site does, but I really wanted to focus on really the cultural time of the Hackley and Humes, the development of the town that we live in, and really base all of our programs on that. And then I worked on the vision statement. So the vision statement was a little bit harder for me. I actually worked on the core values first and kind of worked backwards. And so that seemed to work out pretty well. So I said that the vision for the Hackley and Hume Historic Site is to create a sustainable organization that is becoming an asset to our community by creating awareness in our region, in our community and our region. And so it seems very broad, and I'll kind of break that out in the core values and through what we plan to do in the future. So the core values are to create opportunities to connect with our community through internships, partnerships, and outreach. So I only wrote 2 key values, but I really wanted to focus on the 3 examples that I gave in each of the 2 core values, kind of totaling in 6. So they're kind of smaller subsets of my core values. So I chose internships. I am the internship coordinator for our museum, and I want to continue to focus on that. We have a really large university that's really close by called Grand Valley State University, and that's in the Grand Rapids area. But they send us really great public history interns, history students, archaeology students, and they do a really great job. And I think it would be really important in the future for the museum to be able to, the Hackley and Hume site specifically, to be able to engage with the college on a bigger level, and really bring those interns into our museum as whether it's part of their course for public history, and get some hands-on experience as using us as a teaching site. I think that we have a really great site to learn at, and I think we have the right staff to learn under. It hasn't always been like that. We've had staff that are, don't touch this, this is ours, and you're not worthy to touch or to experience what a curator does. And I think that that can be harmful. So I think to offer those opportunities to the next generation to get excited about public history, so that we can continue to further really our profession in the future. So the next thing is to create opportunities to connect with our community through partnerships. I think that using all of West Michigan is really important for partnerships, but especially Muskegon County. I was just having a conversation with my colleagues today about how our town seems to shoot itself in the foot, because 5 different places are trying to do 5 things that are pretty much the same without working together. And so really creating an atmosphere of partnership at the Hackley and Hume Historic Site, I think we're on the verge of that, but I would put more emphasis into that partnership. Anything we do, we should be able to find a community partner, and I think that that helps grow the need and becoming an asset in our community, like our vision statement says. Creating as many partnerships to support our mission and to support our vision to create a future for the Hackley and Hume Historic Site. And those are all things not really emphasized right now in the current strategic plan or in its mission or its vision. And I think that those are really important. I also think outreach. So I think going beyond the Hackley and Hume Historic Site to also become that community partner for others. And so I also said for number 2, for the core values, I really think that creating programs that are authentic, accurate, and engaging to keep public history alive. So they kind of work in together. So being in the community, working with interns, having partnerships, going out on outreach is very important, but also offering, engaging, authentic, accurate programming for our audiences, whether they're within the walls of the Hackley and Hume Historic Site or if they're out of the walls of the Hackley and Hume Historic Site. I really tried to choose authentic because I talked about mission creep in the past a little bit, how our whole institution is kind of going a little astray of what our mission and vision is. And I think for the success for the Hackley and Hume Historic Site, I think it is vitally important to continue on mission and on vision programming. I think right now is an absolute detrimental time a little bit too, because we have this whole curse of Civil War gold, and we need our reputation and our authenticity in our community. We need to be that shoulder for the people that are unsure what this theory means for our town. We need to be that. Well, let's ask the museum. Let's talk to the Hackley and Hume Historic Site. I know that they know, and I trust that they know, and they'll tell us the truth, and it's authentic, and it's honest, and it's accurate. So creating an atmosphere of that on a deeper level, I think, is really important for the museum's future, so we can nip this thing in the bud. And so we really want to keep this wonderful gem in our community alive for as long as we can. It's been going since the late 1960s is when volunteers got involved to save the houses, and that doesn't go without effort. And so yes, we are paid now. However, that doesn't mean our our passion for the Hackley and Hume Historic Site is any less than those groundbreakers and those trailblazers of our past volunteers. We want to keep it alive for as many years as we can, and we want to keep kind of that one public history aspect in our town, that cultural history, alive. And so by creating those programs that are authentic and accurate, along with the outreach and partnerships and interns, I think that those are all really important. So then looking at the SWOT, and this reminded me a lot of the work that we did in the heritage site evaluations, mostly in number one, I believe, because I talked a lot about some of the strengths of the site right now, and I think I went back and watched the video this evening, but I think I scored like a 4.7 or a 4.8 overall in the site, and I would still score that, but it's good to point out some of the strengths that we have that I didn't get to touch on, repeating some of the weaknesses that we have. Even though it's been a couple of months, some of the same problems we had then, we're still having now. And then some opportunities for the future and the threats that we have right now. So right now, I would say our biggest strength, I would say, is our staff. I would say that from top to bottom, left to right, the people are what make our site really great. It's easy to connect with. We're really great at connecting to our visitors, about reading our visitors, about offering a wide variety of programs and events and interpretation. And we get great feedback. We get good surveys. We get attendance, which is wonderful. We get a lot of word of mouth and positive feedback on our Facebook pages and emails and all of those things. So I would say our staff, our interpreters, they're wonderful. I would say that we're incredibly flexible and agile to every circumstance and situation. So, for example, tomorrow we have a cruise ship coming in, and it's been extremely difficult to bring that into port on time, but I know my staff will be there when they're supposed to be there, which is about 40 minutes early, because just in case the boat is early. The people are what make our site come alive. The interpretation is wonderful because of the people that are delivering that interpretation. And so no matter what it is, we have a great staff that thinks about visitors first, and they think about the visitors' needs first. You know, it's hot, it's August, and our site's open 5 days a week right now, and it's hot in those houses. We don't have air conditioning. You know, they didn't change the structure of the houses for air conditioning, so it's warm in there. But I would say our staff definitely hit the nail on the head with customer service and doing what they can for the visitor, even if it's a brand new circumstance that it's never happened on our site before. So I would say number one is our people. Number two, which is our weaknesses, I would say awareness is one of our weaknesses. Marketing. I think I would change the marketing for the future. Right now, our marketing is done by a large company in our town that holds a lot of accounts, and I don't think it gets the attention that it needs. Case in point, in July, there were supposed to be 7 billboards that went up for the Hackley and Hume Historic Site and Heritage Park, and they failed to put those out. And we had lower numbers in July than we've had in 2 years, and it's interesting to see. We can't totally attribute that to them because they've only been on staff for a little over 7-8 months, but it makes me curious because we had over 500 more people in May and June, and then we plummeted, quite a few in July, which is pretty uncommon for us. So I don't know. Not sure, but I would definitely not be paying $80,000 for our marketing in the future. I think that's a huge weakness, and I think that if you hired the right person, I think that marketing's about connecting to your community and working with people really well, and I think you could hire somebody to do that cheaper. We're in West Michigan. We don't make that much money. It's not very common to make that much money in a marketing position here. And I think you could hire somebody and be a little bit less expensive and do a really great job that only concentrates on your organization, that only concentrates on the Hackley and Hume Historic Site. I think that would be key. Opportunities. So I looked at a lot of opportunities for the future. I think donor opportunities. I think that partnering is really important. grant opportunities in the future. That's something that we have not hit on at all, or very small grants in the past. I think that that's a really big thing. Fundraising, definitely. One of the other opportunities, which I'll talk about a little bit later in my in some of the strategic plan stuff, is some of the opportunities in some of our long-term goal plans is that when the Hackley and Hume Historic Site became a site, the museum was, or when it was like rescued, thus the museum was not established the way that it is now. And so all of the Hackley and Hume papers were donated by a Hume family member to Michigan State University Archive. And that's where the Hackley and Hume papers still sit today. And so they were pulled for the restoration, but only for restoration information in 1980s to be restored. So the problem with that is that we have holes in our research, which is frustrating when we have Kevin Dykstra and his team working on the Civil War gold, and they bring up a mining, certificate, gold mine certificate for Utah or Nevada that we've never seen before. That's not okay. And so that collection is bigger than both my walk-in closets and my bedroom put together. It's a huge collection. It's like 86 cubic feet. And it's going to cost about $35,000 to have it digitized and given to the museum in a digital format. I would put that as a priority, and I see it as an opportunity because we can tell them that whole story. We don't know what we're missing. We could be missing something really vital. We have no idea. We have to pay for copies, and there is kind of a layout of what they do have, but you know how research works. You title it as lumbering papers, and it might have lumbering, yes, but it might have photographic evidence of whatever else that we might be missing. So it's really hard to ask for what you don't know is there. And we've worked with MSU about getting a quote to get that all digitized, and it was kind of put the kibosh on by our director, unfortunately. So I have a plan for that. I have a long-term plan to get those papers digitized in our collection. And a plan to research them so we know what we're doing. And to create more programs. I mean, there's a slew of programs that we haven't even touched on because we don't know the information that we're missing. So those are some opportunities that I think are really important for the future for the Hackley and Hume Historic Site. Some of the threats that we have is that we are millage supported. And right now, everything has a millage. I don't know if it's just West Michigan or if it's kind of everywhere across the states, like I had mentioned in one of the evaluations, but millage fatigue is really unfortunate, and I'm not sure how much longer it's going to be here. We are up for another millage in 2022, and I'm not sure. I really don't know if it's going to pass or if people are fatigued with millages and bonds. And Taylor, you had mentioned it'd be really great to see, an endowment instead of millage support. So I would say that's a huge threat. I think we take that millage for granted. I don't think that we misappropriate funds, in any sense like that. But I think that the fatigue is there, that people are like, what are we putting our tax money to? And so can we see that? And I think we're creating enough programs that people can see it. I don't know if the marketing's there, but we'd like to increase those programming opportunities too, which I have a long-term plan for. So kind of transferring that to an endowment. And I don't know actually how to go about that. If I were the director of this organization, of the Hackley and Hume Historic Site, how I would go about an endowment, raising money for that or finding donors for that. But I would be interested and curious to hear your thoughts about that. So number 5 is long-term goals. So I put MSU papers, so the Hackley and Hume papers that are at Michigan State, I put those on as like a number 1 thing. We can't create more programs that are engaging and authentic and honest and without those papers. We need to know the rest of the story, especially now with the Civil War gold stuff. We need to know. And so I have kind of a 6-year plan for this. And the 6-year plan, if we couldn't find a donor to pay for that, taking $5,000 a year out of our regular budgeting funds for, collections, and putting it towards this collection. And with that $5,000, getting pieces of that collection to us digitally. That means in that year's time, we could go through that $5,000 worth of chunk of information. So whether we did, photographs, maps, family diaries first, and then kind of go back to financial papers, whatever, however the order would be, but we would have it in 6 years, and we would have it researched out. We could have programming development throughout that time, with each year creating new programs for our season months. And I think that'd be a really great opportunity for the museum and for our site. I think it's a really great thing for our site. I think that continuing our restoration plans, we have master plans for both Hackley and Hume, and to see those accomplished and bits and pieces of those accomplished each year, whether through donors, grants, community foundation. We have a wish list that we go on every 6 months, and so finding spaces and fundraisers that those items could be paid for by donors, because they can see the actual work that's being done, the restoration pieces, and just unfinished places. And let's see. So I said also creating programming that's engaging and that's on mission. Opening the site all year round. I think early on in this class we talked about, I think Taylor mentioned, like, why are you only open seasonally? Like, open up your site if you're gonna have an open site. And that really resonated with me. I always have wanted to be a site that's open all year, because I think with my office being on site, I see the visitation that's there when we are not open, and how frustrating that can be for visitors. And I hate telling visitors that we're closed, so I'll sneak them a visit and whatever, but if I can. But I want to be a site that's open all year round. So creating programming in the wintertime, I don't think would be that difficult. Also, opening 7 days a week in July and August. July and August are our busiest months, and that's our tourist months, and I think we should be open every single day. And so finding a way to do that economically would be important to my long-term goals at the Hackley and Hume Historic Site. So those are kind of the way I would look at things if I were the director of the site. And then I kind of wanted to take a look at a strategic plan, and I looked at some other historic houses as strategic plans. But I really kept coming back to wanting to see what our strategic plan is for the Lakeshore Museum Center, and then kind of taking out the Hackley and Hume pieces and kind of analyzing those. And so that's what I did. But again, I didn't look at it until tonight, and I was strangely surprised. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, because I haven't looked at our strategic plan in a while, but some of these things line up pretty well, I think. So it's a 4-page document, our strategic plan currently. Of course, it handles the main museum center and the Living History Park. So I just kind of took the chunks that pertain to, if not all three, just the Hackley and Hume Historic Site. It's a 4-page document, which seems a little bit short, but I think it's pretty concise. It's a 3-year plan, and so it was developed last year in 2017. And it's supposed to be redeveloped and relooked at and reevaluated in 2020. I would say that it's probably going to be updated again in 2019 instead. But there's some other things happening at the Lakeshore Museum Center that I'll just leave there, because it's not important to this. So looking at the current strategic plan for this 3-year time frame, some of the big points were donor development, marketing and promotion, facilities and assets, audience engagement, expanding volunteer engagement, and exhibits. So it was kind of broken up into those sections, which, so they were really broad, and then they had more specific bullet points underneath them. And so I thought I'd kind of share with you what that says. So under the donor development, it was increasing membership, and so I think that that's really important for museums today. Cultivating growth and financial donors, which is important. Building long-term relationships with donors is a good one. And then there were some specifics underneath that about how and where they were going to do that. And growth of grants income. So knowing what I know, because this is my site and my bread and butter here, since the strategic plan has been laid out, we hired a development director who has started in January, and then she's already written several grants, and they've gone through some mostly for the main museum center, but one for the historic sites, which is really exciting, and I'll find out soon. And then the marketing and promotion. So this was a big problem, and I mentioned that in one of my evaluations, that marketing was kind of a big deal. So that marketing person that was let go last September, I think I mentioned, she was doing development and marketing, and so when they let her go, they hired the marketing firm, but then they also hired a new development director, so they kind of split that in two. And so I would say that they're sort of reaching some of these goals really quickly in their 3-year plan, because it's a lot of donor development, and marketing was the bulk of this document. So I would say that they're definitely checking off a lot of things on this. Maximizing marketing resources, and this listed a bunch of different ways that we can market that we weren't currently marketing, some new social medias, and other locations in town. But hiring a marketing firm was not on this list, because they really were planning on hiring an individual to do the work. But that's a whole nother story. And then continuing collaboration with local museums and tourist partners. I think I mentioned in the evaluation that we have 15 museums total in Muskegon County, and so working to find a way to not compete with these other museums, but work in collaboration and partnership with the other museums on programs, events, whatever it is. And to cross-promote our events and programs and things like that too, if we're not working together, but even promoting the things that we have with our visitors. So those were the 3 hot topics under marketing and promotion. Then they talked about buildings and facilities and assets. And so there was a list for each of the buildings, some things that are in dire need of. And so for the Hackley and Hume Historic Site, was boilers in 2018, which were done in the past winter or last fall. And then a new furnace needs to go into our carriage house, the building that I actually directly work out of. And that new furnace is supposed to go in 2019. They are slowly replacing all of our lighting in the city barn or the carriage house, which is visitor center, office space, exhibit space, and visitor holding cell before the tour starts. So every time a light goes out, an LED gets put back in. So I don't know why it reminded me, every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. So every time a light bulb goes out, we get to save a little bit on energy, and better for the artifacts. So good thing. And then integral work guided by the master plan. So that's the master plan that my colleague and I developed for the Hackley and Hume Historic Site, and that is all that restoration stuff that I talked about in my strategic plan. One of those big things is carpeting the upstairs of the Hackley House. It was never done in the original restoration, even though now they say that the restoration's complete. It's really not. There's lots of things that we can always be doing to improve our things. So working on that master plan as part of our facilities and assets. Then we talked about some audience engagement, expanding volunteer engagement opportunities, and exhibits. And it didn't really touch on a lot of those. It was really the bulk was the things that I kind of focused on as well. So in that 4-page document, the question was, if I had the opportunity to be the director of the Hackley and Hume Historic Site, I would say absolutely 100% yes. I would want that job. I love working with donors. I love talking about the Hackley and Hume Historic Site. You might have gotten a hint of that in the last 14 weeks. I think it's really interesting work. I'm really excited about it, and I can tell when I'm talking to a donor that they feed off that excitement, and they're just excited to have something exciting to donate to, and they feel like it's a worthy cause. If you were asking me if I would want to be the director of the entire Lakeshore Museum Center as it sits today, with the main museum center, the Living History Park, and Hackley and Hume Historic Site, based on paper, based on the strategic plan, I'd say, yeah, I could bite that off. I could totally do that. But looking at things from the way I actually know them, from getting, being there inside of what is actually happening and working with the board and, or lack thereof, and some of the trials that we face, I don't know. I really, really don't know. I would like to say yes, I'm definitely courageous enough to do that, but I'm not really sure that I would, being this close to the scene. So definitely the Hackley and Hume Historic Site is where I eat, live, breathe, and enjoy every day going to work there. And I will do anything in my power to make sure that the strategic plan of, some of the things that I've written come into fruition, and being passionate about those things to the board, to the director, to donors. Because I think that they are really important to the future success of the Hackley and Hume Historic Site. Again, I want them to be there. I know this is supposed to be like a mock, strategic plan, but this is really how I feel. I really want these historic sites to be there in the future. I want interns to learn from them and with them, and to be an integral part of the community and making partnerships and outreach and whatever we can do, whether it's speaking engagements, lecture series, cool, spooky, obituary tours, whatever it is. If it has something to do with the Hackley and Humes and Muskegon County history and it's authentic and honest, I'm in. So with that, I am at like 32 minutes, and this is my last assignment. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful semester. I think this has definitely been my favorite class, and I'm kind of like getting choked up about it. So thank you so much for all of your hard work and putting in what you did for this class. I've learned so much, and I'm eternally grateful. I hope to keep in touch, and I wish you well the rest of the summer, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.